Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. This is episode 283. It is June 18th, 2024. Thank you for joining me here today. This is the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about how to live a good life, whether you consider yourself a homesteader or not. I like to think of myself as a lifesteader because I'm building a life. And really, that's what we're all doing, right? We're building a life. We're living this life. We're trying to figure out what's going on. I am Amy Dingman. I live on a 5-acre homestead in central Minnesota where we are doing all sorts of things, mostly watching the endless rain. That's what we're doing right now. What is today's topic? Today's topic is 5 pieces of advice for every homesteader, not new homesteaders, not experienced homesteaders, every homesteader. And if you think real hard about this advice, it's probably going to apply to just about anything you want to do in life. So if you don't consider yourself a homesteader, I think you're still going to get something out of today's episode. But before we get to the main topic, what's been happening on the lifestead? Well, our sweet corn that we planted with our single row corn planter is coming up. It's coming up. The corn planter worked. I'm super excited. I'm wondering, is it going to be knee-high by the 4th of July? Because that's the term, right? I mean, that's the phrase that everybody uses. Around here, at least in Minnesota, the old-timers would always say the sweet corn should be knee-high by the 4th of July. The 4th of July is a little over 2 weeks away, unbelievably. So is it going to get to knee-high by the 4th of July? I don't know. One of the things that really surprised me when we moved to our farm back in 2011, the fields around our farm are owned by another farmer. And so every other year it's soybeans or corn. And the first year that he planted corn out there that we were here, I was absolutely amazed at how fast it grew. And that when the 4th of July hit, that corn was way taller than knee high. And I thought, what is this craziness? So I don't know, our little patch that was planted late that doesn't have anything real special on it or in the soil. We'll see what happens. What else? Our strawberries are doing amazing, you guys. We have so many strawberries and we've got so many runners coming off of them. This year is our year for strawberries, I guess, and I'm so excited. And I had someone ask on social media the other night when I posted a picture. I'd gone out in the rain, I'd picked a bunch of strawberries, and I was having myself a little snack in the rain of my handful of strawberries. And this person asked, how is it that you keep the critters away from your strawberries? How are you keeping the birds away? How are you keeping the rabbits away? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure why they're not being bothered. Because let me tell you, our big garden this year, our big vegetable garden, the main garden, is being messed with by wild rabbits. I've been here since 2011, and we have never had as big of a problem with wild rabbits in the garden as we have this year. And the garden is fenced, but those rabbits, I watch them, they pop right under the fence, and they go in there and they eat my gem corn, and they mess with my potatoes, and I'm yelling at them. So that's happening in the regular garden. And then right across the yard, we got all these strawberries growing and nothing's bothering them. I'm like, am I just a really awesome strawberry farmer? Or like, what's going on here? It occurs to me the other day, the reason nothing is bothering our strawberries or our blueberry plants, which are planted in the same area, is because our cats sleep in the strawberry patch. They're always laying in the sun next to the strawberries, next to the blueberries, and just chilling. It's their favorite place to hang out and just doze. And it occurred to me that I have this little gang of cats that is serving as my strawberry protectors. They're like the mafia that is protecting my strawberries. And I'm very thankful for that. So thank you, barn kitties, for protecting our fruit. I will let you lay the fruit underneath the blueberry bushes and wrapped around those strawberry baskets as long as you want. Because apparently that's the only reason that those plants are surviving. there you go. What else is going on the Lifestead? I'm working on another fiction book, and this is a really big deal to me because I really haven't been able to write fiction for probably 2 years. The words just have not been there. For those of you who don't know, I write nonfiction under my real name, Amy Dingman, and I also write fiction under a pen name. That pen name is Shay Ray Stevens, and most of the books that I write are pretty dark psychological thrillers, dark literary kind of things. And I started writing a book a week ago. It came to me, and I sat down, and within an hour I knew, oh, this is a thing. I'm writing again, and I felt really, really good, and I was very excited. But the thing is, this book is not dark. This book is not a thriller. This book is not anything like I've written before. Y'all, this book is a romance. Y'all, I don't write romance, or at least I didn't until a week ago, because now I'm a week in and I'm closing in on 20,000 words, and y'all. But I will tell you this much: it does take place on a homestead, modern day, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this story. So I will keep you updated on that, let you know what all happens with that. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's nice to keep my brain busy. And if you listen to my podcast a couple weeks ago, I talked about my 220 method, which is basically where I set my timer for 20 minutes, and I have 2 different lists that I work off of. One list is, stuff that needs to be done on the farm and stuff that's up and not at my computer. And then I have my other list, which is stuff to do at my computer. And for the last week, that list has been 20 minutes of writing on the story and 20 minutes of running outside and doing stuff on the farm, and then coming back for 20 minutes and writing on this story. And y'all, I am flying through this. So having a lot of fun with that. That's what's been keeping me busy, y'all. So now let's head over to the main topic and talk about these 5 pieces of advice that I would give to any and every homesteader that I meet. I got a question in my inbox last month. It was someone who was new to homesteading. They had found my page, and they told me they were really enjoying my page on Facebook, and they wanted my best 3 pieces of advice on homesteading to new homesteaders, so they didn't jump into something totally crazy. And I emailed them back and I said, I would think about, what my best 3 pieces of advice are, but that if they didn't want to jump into something totally crazy or something that would make them totally crazy, that maybe homesteading was not the right choice for them. I'm kidding, of course. But then the cool thing that happened is just last week, I got an email from someone else who was kind of asking something similar. And they said they were looking for advice on how to keep going. They'd been a homesteader for a decade, I believe they said. And they were wondering, what were the things that I wished I had known when I started homesteading, that I learned along the way, that didn't necessarily have to do with the specifics of, how to grow a garden or how to raise a certain animal. And so that email got me thinking down the path for this podcast episode. So this episode is 5 pieces of advice that I think are really important, whether you're brand new to homesteading or you've been doing it for 15 years, whatever. And a lot of these things I think will actually apply to other things in life. So even if you don't consider yourself a homesteader, I think this episode's going to work for you. So feel free to let your mind wander on what those things might be. Number 1, homesteading changes. Just like life changes, okay? And you have to be ready for that, and you have to be okay with that. That's my advice. Homesteading changes, be ready for it, and be okay with it. For a long time, when I would talk about homesteading or write about homesteading, I was speaking from the perspective of someone who was home full-time on a 5-acre homestead surrounded by fields on a dead-end dirt road, right? I was living my fantasy life, right? And that was the perspective I was speaking from. Then all of a sudden, I got a job outside the home for a couple years. And that job started part-time and then moved to full-time. And then that job was very often the opposite shift as my husband and the opposite days as my husband. And I learned that homesteading is a whole different ball game when you're doing that. And I learned that you can only give homesteading advice from the situations that you are in or have been in. So keep that in mind when you are giving advice and when you're receiving advice. Sometimes when people want to know how to do some certain thing in homesteading, the advice will be, well, just do this, okay? All you need to do is this. But what I found is that the just do thises don't work in every setup, and they don't work in every stage of life. Okay? Sometimes you just have to put things off for a bit. Sometimes you have to do things on a way smaller scale than you fantasize about being able to do. Sometimes things that worked 2 years ago don't work anymore, and you need to scale back. Homesteading is weaved right into your life. So it makes sense that the details and the how-tos and the process is going to change over time as well as your life changes. Let it. Be okay with that. The way that you set things up as a 30-year-old on your homestead might not work anymore when you're 45. Those things might need to be adjusted because you're older or because there aren't as many kids around to help anymore, etc., etc. And maybe the thing you want to work when you're 25 might finally fall into place when you're 40. Maybe because you have a little extra money, or you have a little extra time, or you have a different job, or maybe the kids are finally old enough to help. I don't know. I don't know how your life is set up. I don't know what's going on in it, but I do know that your life changes all the time. It's supposed to. Okay? Homesteading changes just like life changes. And some of you are probably seeing those changes. Actually, all of you are probably seeing those changes, right? Because we're all going through it. We're all in different stages of life, and life is changing. Homesteading fits into that. Let it fit as it needs to. Number 2, I harp on this often, but realize that community is so freaking important. Way more important than anyone talks about. And actually, I would say people are starting to talk about it more. Because I think for a while, homesteading was every man for himself. I need to take care of me. I'm clawing at survival in almost this desperate kind of weird me kind of thing, right? And you do need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. You can't fill from an empty cup. You can't feed others from a garden you didn't get planted. You can't take care of other families if your own family's in shambles, right? But I believe that one of the motivations to take care of yourself should be because you are then in a position to take care of your neighbors and your community. So make sure that as a homesteader, or if you're creeping towards that prepper term, okay, that prepper lifestyle, make sure that community reliance is part of your self-reliance plan, because community reliance and self-reliance are not mutually exclusive. Okay? I think I said that right. I guess I'll find out when I listen back to this. All right, so that was number 2. Number 3, don't worry how other people are homesteading or what they're calling it. Which is to say, if Becky wants to paint her house white and drink out of mason jars and have a window box where she grows a whole bunch of lettuce and she wants to call herself a homesteader, who cares? Let her. As long as Becky isn't hurting anyone or anything, let her. Stop worrying so much about words. You don't own the word. You don't own the term homesteader. And when we make check marks and we make lists of what you have to do to claim some title, things are going to get really tricky. Because if we're honest, if Ma Ingalls were to come back and look at most of us, she'd laugh that any of us were using the term homesteader. Because this is not 1862. And the majority of us are not on 160 acres of land. Don't worry so much about the label. We need to spend our time doing what we're going to do, doing the things we want to do, right? And less time worrying about what to call them or if other people fit our definition of what we think the term means. Number 4, don't worry about what others think about how you're doing it. Don't worry about what other people think about your journey as a homesteader. or what you're doing. Some people think I am a baby homesteader because I don't have goats. I used to have goats. I don't like goats. Some people think I'm an amazing homesteader because I happen to have 2 barns. Some people think I'm a fake homesteader because some years it's just easier and cheaper to buy chicken at the store or not buy it at all than it is to raise meat birds ourselves. We usually raise meat birds. We haven't the last few years. There are lots of people who will think they have a say in what you're doing. And here's what we need to keep in mind. These people that think they have a say in what you're doing are very often also people who don't have a clue where you actually live. If we're talking about people on the internet, right? Those people, they don't have a clue where you live. They don't know your middle name. They're never going to sit at a table with you and share a meal. They don't know when your kid's birthday is. I mean, these are people who are not paying your bills. They don't know what you wear to bed. These are all people who are out there, right? Or at least at an arm's length from you. And yet we let their opinions about how we're doing whatever we're doing right into our head. Let people do what they're going to do and let them think what they're going to think. You guys, in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. So don't get caught up in it. Don't get caught up in it. The 5th piece of advice that I think is really important and that I think you have to cycle back to several times in your homesteading journey or your life journey, because this applies to anything, right? Remember why you wanted to do it and be honest about it, because goals and plans can change, and they often do change, but it's so easy to get sucked into like 14 different animals that you never intended on having. And one day you wake up and you look out at your barn and you're thinking, how did this happen? And why do we have emus? Chicken math is kind of a funny joke. People will joke about that. You know, how many chickens do you have? Oh, I don't know. Or I have 5 chickens, but actually it's 40. Or that's what you tell your husband because actually you have 80. Like chicken math, you know, they tend to multiply and then you're like, oh my gosh, how did I come up with all these chickens? So chicken math, I mean, it's a funny joke, but it's also an actual issue. Because if you let it get out of control, you can have some real problems that affect your pocketbook and your mental health and your relationships if you just keep giggling it away, right? Why do we have chickens? Because they're fun or because we wanted eggs? Those are 2 different things. And either reason is fine, but that might determine how many chickens you have. Remember why you wanted to do it, okay? Remember why you got into this. Sometimes homesteading is going to get really difficult and you're going to want to quit. I remember there was a year we got rid of all of our animals. And then the following spring, we started over from scratch, okay? Sometimes homesteading gets difficult and you want to quit. Before you quit, or before you expand, or before you get some crazy exotic animal you never knew you wanted, or before you stop doing something or start doing something else, remember why you wanted to homestead in the first place, and then weigh your decisions against that. Sometimes we get so caught up and barrel ahead towards something that is not anything that we actually wanted to do because we get caught up in something else. And that can mean lots of different things. Center yourself in that reason, which is, why did I want to do this? What was the plan here? And yes, plans change, but why did you want to do it? And keep that in your gut or your heart or your head or on your bathroom mirror, whatever. Don't forget the reason you wanted to do it. And again, all this advice will work for many, many, many life situations. So I guarantee you, I did not just give you homesteading advice. I gave you life-steading advice. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. You guys, you could be listening to anybody, but you keep coming back here to listen to me babble once a week. And I appreciate that. If you'd like to support me, you can head over to my bonfire store, which is linked in the show notes, and you can pick up a t-shirt to show off your farmishness. So check that out if you are interested. Also, if you would like to join my new Facebook group called the Get By Guys and Gals group, we are talking about lots of different things over there. Sometimes we talk a lot, and sometimes people are busy living life and doing the things, and so it's kind of quiet in there, but that's fine. I love that. Real people doing real things and talking about it when they get a chance. So the link to join that is also in the show notes. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.